Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday morning, the 9th. Now I'm going to continue on with the study in Leviticus. I'll probably go through 5, 6, and 7 today. As we get deeper into Leviticus, there'll be more and more information, more and more spiritual meaning that I understand anyway, that I would want to share. um, like I said before, I don't want to make this, me reading the scriptures line by line, because it can get kind of redundant for some people. But I'm only going to go through, like I said before, with stuff that I understand that's in the spirit, share with you guys, and you guys can glean as you wish. So if I run through some of this in 5 in particular, or 6 or 7, that there's nothing that I can add to any value of it other than what it says, I will continue to read. Again, if there's something that you guys understand better, that would be great as well, as we continue to glean. So there is, I'm going to try to go through maybe some back and forth a little bit with some other scriptures as well, to tie things in, to show as I continue on here with Leviticus. But, as we get through this, there's a lot of deeper meanings and understandings of why the fire is going, or why unclean food, or why appointed times, and what that actually means in the plan of salvation. And I'm going to touch on some of it today, just a little bit. I'll probably go back and forth maybe a couple times. But as we get further through Leviticus, we'll see that there's a lot more tied to, obviously, the pattern by pattern and scripture by scripture as it interprets itself. We'll see connections and correlations, which is very, very important. The Torah is everything that you essentially need, where the New Testament is basically confirming, or what has been a shadow in the Torah is being fulfilled in the New Testament, that we read, or the gospel, or the eighth day, that is going to happen as we gather in for tabernacles in the millennium. So here in Leviticus 5, I kind of understand this one as a whole, as people. And what I mean by this is that this is directly talking about a soul, or a person, any person. Um, and as we know, it would be reflecting of the 12 tribes of Israel, and any stranger that took up the ways of the Israelite, and bound himself to them. But I can also see this as people today in this world that have no understanding, have not had their heart converted, and they are continuing to live in sin every single day. These sins here are being covered in Leviticus 5. And what I mean is this: and if a soul sin and hear the voice of swearing, and is witness, whether he has seen or known, if he do not utter it, then he shall bear his iniquity. Okay, so this is witnessing, or knowing it himself. He is guilty. Okay, if a soul touch any unclean thing, whether it be a carcass of an unclean beast, or a carcass of an unclean cattle, or the carcass of an unclean creeping thing, and it be hidden from him, he also shall be unclean and guilty. So how can it be hidden from you if you know that you're coming up to a dead cow, or a dead lamb, or a dead anything? How is that hidden from you? Well, it's not. This is spiritually talking about something more. And as we'll get into, and I think it's Leviticus 11, I think it is, when he starts talking about clean and unclean. I think it is. This is talking about people. This is talking about the characters of people. Okay, the unclean and clean foods was physically given to have an understanding of what it actually means for the being around people, and different types of people, and different types of personalities, and what to stay away from, and what's an abomination, and what is an abomination. Okay, we're going to get into that in Leviticus 11. I'm going to share a lot of my insight, a lot of my thoughts on why unclean foods, and how it's not directly tied to just eating the food. In fact, it has nothing to do with that. Christ confirms that for us in the New Testament with what goes in the belly comes out into the toilet bowl and does not defile the man, but what comes out of his heart. It's all about the heart, guys. I keep saying that. It's all about the heart. It has nothing to do with unclean food and the tassels, okay? But he uses these physical examples to teach us that we have to keep ourselves blemish free, have to keep ourselves um, holy, keep ourselves in his righteousness. So when he says here, if any soul touches any unclean thing, whether it be a carcass of an unclean beast or carcass of an unclean cattle or carcass of an unclean creeping thing, okay, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about people, about what is hidden from the man that is actually in association with the person? I think so. And if you touch, or if he touch uncleanness of a man, whatsoever uncleanness it be, a man shall be defiled withal, and it be hid from him. When he knoweth, then he shall be guilty. So what kind of an example is this? You know, you're hanging around with somebody who thinks a good person, but inside their heart they have real deep sins. Okay, sins that cannot be seen. Okay, the inner sins, the ones that are in the dark corner at home at night, maybe watching pornography all night, declaring or professing himself to be what? A Christian. Okay. Um, this is what this is what we're talking about here, the uncleanness of a man. Okay. uh, Physical here in the Old Testament, but showing us the deeper understanding in the New Testament. Okay. Or if a soul swear, pronouncing with his lips to do evil or to do good, whatsoever a man shall pronounce with an oath, and it be hid from him, when he knoweth, then he shall be guilty of one of these things. Again, the regular people not knowing what they're doing, not knowing what they're saying, not converted in their heart, but the sins are being covered here in Leviticus by the animals. Okay, it's being covered for them. The world today we live in is a Gentile heathen nation. Nothing has changed and nothing new under the sun. People are walking around not having a clue, that are not called or not born again or not seeking the truth. They're just living their life the best they possibly can. They're living their life in the best ability that they can, but they're sinning tremendously, not even knowing it. Okay, this is what I believe these sins are being covered for. Okay, and it shall be when he shall be guilty in one of these, that he shall confess that he has sinned in that thing, and he shall bring his trespass offering unto the Lord for his sin, which he has sinned, a female of the flock of the lamb or a kid of the goats, and the sin offering, and the priest shall make atonement for him. Okay, again, they're bringing what? We're bringing hierarchy. We're bringing different types of animals that represent different types of people, and the priests are making atonement for them, covering of their sin, even though they didn't even know. This is a representation of my understanding of the people we're living with today, that their sins were still having been forgiven for the greater purpose of the restitution of all man, which is going to happen at the end of the ages of ages. And then we have here, if he's not able to bring a lamb, then he shall bring for his trespass, which he has committed, 2 turtle doves and 2 young pigeons unto the Lord for a sin offering and the burnt offering. Okay, again, showing us the difference between, what they could, maybe they couldn't afford a lamb, maybe they couldn't, afford a bull, whatever the case may be. Okay, it's showing that it's for everyone. And he shall bring him unto the priest, and what shall offer, which is the sin offering, first ring off his neck, and from his neck he shall not divide in two. Okay, again, we see the blood being sprinkled on the side, okay, of the altar. We went through this before. And I'm not going to continue through this one here. Like I said, again, if a soul commit a trespass and a sin through ignorance in the holy things of the Lord, he shall bring his trespass unto the Lord, a ram without blemish, out of the flocks, that estimation of the shekels of the silver, the shekel of the sanctuary, the trespass offering. Okay, he's got to bring a ram. Okay, so this is a person that is sinning, trespass sin through ignorance in the holy things. What are the holy things of the Lord? Okay, what are the holy? Well, of course, back in the Old Testament, it's anything that was holy, anything that was sanctified through the temple, the tabernacle, through the high priest, the appointed times, the Sabbath. All these sorts of things, new moons, all these things were holy. Okay, holy days, holy things. Okay, if you made a trespass against them, you had to have a ram. Okay, that was without blemish and with the estimation of shekel. Okay, obviously the price to pay on top of it with the lamb itself, you had to pay more. Okay, and he shall make amends for the harm that he hath done in the holy things, and shall add a fifth part unto, and give unto the priest. The priest shall make atonement for him with the ram of the trespass offering, and it shall be forgiven him. Okay, does this mean in today's world of the holy things? What are the holy things to the Lord? Taking his name in vain, uh, cursing against heaven, cursing against God, cursing against creation, cursing against the Holy Spirit. Is this what we're talking about here? About a soul that commit trespass against the holy things, okay? Is that what is being covered for here in our age? People unknowingly doing this, or doing it out of complete ignorance. Maybe. Um, uh, Clearly, we're not going to see, essentially a high priest or one of the priests inside the Holy of Holies, committing, something through ignorance. Really, I mean, they would be essentially killed. So, this is obviously meaning more. And if a soul sin and commit any of these things which are forbidden to be done by the commandments of the Lord, though he was not, and he is guilty, he shall bear his iniquity. Okay, and then again, we're bringing a ram, and through ignorance and etc. will be forgiven him. Okay, moving on. 6. Okay, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, if a soul sin and commit trespass against the Lord, and lie unto his neighbor in that which he is delivered to keep, or his fellowship, or has been taken away by violence, or has deceived his neighbor, or has found that which was lost, and lied and concerning and swearing falsely, and of these things a man has done a sin, then it shall be because he has sinned and he is guilty, and restore that which he took away. Okay, again, showing us these sins being covered for. Are these a representation of being sins that were being covered for the regular folks, the regular people living in sin, not, being very sly, being very, conspicuous, all this types of stuff. But their sins are yet still being covered. They're still being animal sacrifice, blood atonement for, even though they're living in complete and utter sin. Again, this is all, in my understanding, all to do with the redemption of man, the restitution of all things. Okay, there still has to be a covering for this type of sin for everyone. And this is how I see it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you have a different insight, but this is how I understand it. Now we're going to see a distinction between the regular soul, the regular person, and now we're going to get into the priest and into the congregation, etc. Now this is being very specific here. Okay, he's actually talking about the called out ones. Okay, so before we have the regular folk, and then now we have the called out ones here, and then it goes into 7 and 8 as well. But the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, command Aaron, okay, and his sons, saying, this is the law of the burnt offering. It is the burnt offering. Because of the burning upon the altar all night unto the morning, the fire on the altar shall be burning in it. Why? This is very important. Okay, this is very, very, very important. The altar never goes out. The fire is always burning. It's always, always on fire. They were commanded to keep the altar always burning. Okay, we understand that this is God is a consuming fire. Okay, yes, absolutely. It's always on fire. Okay, and the priest shall put on his what? Okay, before I get into that, we're going to tie this into the actual understanding of offerings. Okay, the burnt offering. Okay, very, very most important. Okay, sin offering, burnt offering. Okay, very important, most important. It's because of the sin of man. And this is directly tied to the lake of fire. Okay, the lake of fire. Okay, the laver, the water, and the fire. Okay, I'm going to get into that in a big way when we get into Leviticus 13 and 14 about leprosy and how it's actually talking about the lake of fire and how sin is going to be cleansed. And it's truly remarkable. But what we see here is that this is always on fire. So the sins are always having to be atoned for. This is what this means, is that there's always has to be a sacrifice on that offering or on that altar. So it's always on fire, covering the sins of man at all times, until all things are redeemed, until all things are restored, until God is all in all. Very important. We're going to tie this to Numbers 29 and see a big connection here. And the priest shall put on, now here's important here, okay? I touched on this before. And the priest shall put on his linen garment and his linen breeches shall he put upon his flesh, and take up the ashes which is on the fire has consumed with the burnt offering of the altar, and he shall put them beside the altar. Okay, what's he putting on here? He's putting on his Melchizedekian robes. He's putting on his sons of God robes, his all white garments, his what righteous act of the saints garments, white linen, fine linen. Okay. This is a representation of the physical of the Levitical priests, physical putting on the linen, which is the conclusion or the fulfillment, Melchizedekian priest, the spiritual priest garments. Okay, do you see that? Okay. And he shall put off his garments and put on other garments and carry forth the ashes outside the camp onto a clean place. So now he's taken the burnt offerings from all the sins. Okay, he's walking into the burnt offering. He's taken it. This is showing us the future here of what's going to happen. Okay, how he's got the Melchizedekian priesthood. Okay, he's got the ashes, and they're going to take them outside the camp. But see, the Melchizedekian priests are always what? They're always with the Lord. Okay, they're always doing the work with the Lord. They're always with Christ. Okay, in the millennium. Okay, and then the camp. Okay, and then outside the camp. Okay, so when these Melchizedekian priests, those that are the body of Christ, those that are part of Christ, okay, basically the wheat harvest, that are part of his body, okay, that are part of Christ, the Melchizedekian called priests, royal kingdom of priests. Okay, he's showing the distinction here that the Levites had to take off that so that they would go outside the camp. Okay, or put on their garments. What other garments? They had to put on the garments of the tassels. They had to go back under the law again. Okay, they had to go back under the law. Okay, the distinction here. Okay, they had to put their other garments on, or their tassels, the ones that they had to wear when they were back in the regular folk, under the law. Remember, the Melchizedekian priests are going to be ruling with a rod of iron with Christ. They're not going to be under the law. They're going to be teaching the law. They're going to be administrating the law, the Torah, from the heart, not the physical. They're going to be in the physical in the millennium, the 12 tribes of Israel, those that are part of that are the common Israelite. But they're going to be, the Melchizedekian priests are going to have to teach them why they're doing what they're doing from the spiritual sense. Okay, do you understand? Okay, so he's taking off his Melchizedekian garment here, okay, and he's putting on his other garment, his tassels, and is going outside the camp, outside where the lake of fire is, okay, under the law, okay, where they're being refined, okay, and the fire upon the altar shall be burning in it. It shall not be quenched, is a better translation for this, okay, it's not quenched. The fire will not be quenched, like a fire. Okay, refining. It's a dross, pulling out the evilness of the heart, pulling out all the bad things, all the no fruit from the heart. Dross, pulling it out. Okay, to refine the man, to cleanse the man. That's what the whole thing is about. Okay, everybody is going to be redeemed in their own order. Okay, it shall not be quenched. And the priest shall burn the wood on it every morning and lay it, the burnt offering, upon it, and he shall burn thereon the fat of the peace offering. Okay, the peace offering, free will offering, okay, sacrifice offering. Okay, this is important as we understand in Christ. Okay, the fire shall ever be burning upon the altar, it shall never be quenched. Never be quenched. Very, very important. Very, very important. Let's go to Numbers real quick. I'm going to just touch on this today real quick until we get into it more in detail later. But I want to show you something here that's very interesting. Okay. So we have here, this is all the sacrifices for the feast. Okay. 3 feasts here. Okay. Feast of Trumpets, Feast of Atonement. Okay. 28 gives us the other ones. All right. But let's focus on millennium. Okay. The millennium. This is the millennium here. Feast of Tabernacles, Feast of Booths. Okay. So talking about keeping in mind the altar always being burning. Okay. It's never quenched. It's good. We're going to read that it's basically a perpetual never ending statute forever and ever. Okay. Or the ages on the ages. Okay. Or whatever you want to look at it. Okay. When we read and understand this, okay, this is tied to Leviticus 23, of course, but this gets a deeper understanding of the bigger offerings, the more important offerings This represents all man, okay? And what we have here is we have 13 bulls, okay? And we're going to go down and down, okay? And we keep going down, and then you're going to get 13 bulls, and you're going to get, I think it goes down to 12, and etc. But essentially, what's going to happen is that every single day for the 7 days of Feast of Tabernacles, you're going to get a set amount of bulls, set amount of rams, set amount of goats, etc. Okay, with the offerings. But what's important to understand here is that it's 70 bulls. Okay, 70 bulls are being offered here on what? On the millennium, in the millennium. Okay, now 70 bulls has a representation to me of the 70 nations, original nations from Genesis. Also, the 70 elders that went up on the mount with Moses and Aaron and Nadab and Abinhu. I think, if I remember correctly, his two sons. The 73 went up. Okay, 70 elders representing the 70 elders, or the 70 heads of the called ones at that time. The 70 heads of those. Okay, the 70 ones that were basically the heads of the families. These are the people that are called out. Obviously, during that time, this was representation of the first Pentecost or Shavuot, first meeting with God on top of the mount, eating and drinking. Okay, this is a shadow, okay, of what the fulfillment's going to be in the future of the 70 nations. Okay, but what's interesting here is what I want to get to is that we see on the 8th day. Okay. So we believe, people believe that when we enter into the 8th day, that it's when we look at the parallels of the 8th and have the understanding of, okay, the millennium is tabernacles, and then the 8th great day, last great day, or the 8th day is now the new heaven and the new earth, and this is when God is now tabernacling with man, with Jesus Christ, and the two kingdoms come together, and everything is defeated, everything is going on. But so if that was the case, then there should be no more offerings in the 8th day. There should be no more fire burning on the altar, because remember what he says. He says he makes all things new. But again, he says he makes all things new. It doesn't say that he has made all things new. So is the lake of fire, or is the altar that's burning that never is going to be quenched, is it still going to be going during the 8th day? Is there still going to be some people out there like Satan and whoever else that maybe still need to be cleansed? I would think so. And we get this confirmation here, which is on the 8th day, you shall have a solemn assembly, you shall do no servile work. But you shall offer a burnt offering, a sacrifice made by fire, a sweet Savior unto the Lord, 1 bull, 1 ram, 7 lambs of the first year without blemish. So here we're seeing that what we were just talking about here in Leviticus 6, which is the it shall where are we here? I got lost here. I think I'm on Leviticus 6. Yeah. Where we're having it shall, what? The altar shall never be quenched. Okay. It shall never be quenched. We're seeing that even on the 8th day. Okay. Even in the new generation. Okay. Or the new creation, the altar is still burning. Okay. It's still burning, and it's burning because it's still possibly, in my understanding, they're still dealing with some sort of sin. In Revelation 21, talks about how when New Jerusalem comes down, and we see outside the gates, we see that there's still some people there. I mean, I know people say that it's just some people believe that it's just a recap, and after a certain verse in 21, but I don't see that anymore. I see that as it being telling us still that they're still being drossed, they're still being worked on, they're still being cleansed, and the fire or the altar is still burning. It's still going for atonement for sin. Okay, it's still going for atonement for sin. There's still some people out there that are still needing to be refined. And no, they're not burning in hell forever and ever. They are actually going to be cleansed with the lake of fire, water and fire, until they are cleansed. So obviously here we're reading, again, a little side note in Numbers 29. I jumped off the map here. Hope I didn't lose you. Is actually talking about the fire that never goes out, and who knows if it will ever go out. And we will have to see it, obviously, at some point in time. even Satan himself could possibly be redeemed. As crazy and as wild as that may sound to people out there listening to that, that is still a possibility in my understanding, because at one time he had a good heart. At one time he was made beautiful and all things were going well with him and the Elohim, until iniquity was found in his heart and then he fell. Okay, so there obviously was a little speck of goodness in him. Will they ever get it out of him again when he goes through the lake of fire to be cleansed? Water and fire, again, until he can be cleansed and redeemed. I don't know. But we do know that the fire is never to be quenched and is still going during the 8th day, or the new heaven and the new earth. Okay. Continuing here. And this is the law of the meat offering. The sons of Aaron shall offer it before the Lord. Okay, this is a food offering before the altar. He shall take of it a handful of flour, the meat offering, and the oil thereof, and the frankincense upon the meat offering. Okay, the food offering shall be burned upon the altar of sweet savor. Okay, and the remainder thereof of Aaron and his sons shall eat of the unleavened bread. It shall be eaten in the holy place in the court of the tabernacle of the congregation. They shall eat it. Okay, again, what are we seeing here? Well, we're talking about Aaron and his sons. We're talking about the priesthood. We're talking about the Melchizedekian priesthood, Levitical priesthood. What are they eating here? They're eating the unleavened bread. Who's the unleavened bread? Jesus Christ. Okay, he's actually being eaten here. This is showing symbolically that we have to what? Have the full Jesus Christ in us. Okay, we have to consume him, eat his flesh, eat his blood, as he tells us in the New Testament. Okay, all the males among the children of Israel shall eat of it, statute forever in your generations, concerning the offerings, Lord, made by fire. Everyone that touches them shall be holy. Of course, they're going to be holy because it's talking about Jesus Christ. And all the males among the children of Aaron. Okay, so we're talking about Aaron is what? A representation of Jesus Christ as the high priest, and all his sons, which would be us, or those that are called, chosen, and faithful, and actually attain the Melchizedekian priesthood in the next age, which we all are striving to do. Okay, this is just a representation. Okay, physical, okay, shadow, and then fulfillment will be during the millennium. The Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, this is the offering of Aaron and his sons. Okay, again, talking to who? The priesthood, which they shall offer unto the Lord in the day when he is anointed, a 10th part of an ephah of fine flour for meat offering perpetual, half of it in the morning and half of it therefore at night. Okay, so we have a 0.5, of an omer, or one man of bread. Basically, what it is offered in the morning and offered at night. Okay, so is this representation of the first covenant Old Testament bride, Melchizedekian priesthood, and then at night, which is the second covenant or the New Testament Melchizedekian priesthood. Is this what it's talking about, the fulfillment of that? One man of bread for each, making one? I think so. Okay, shall made with oil, bacon, they shall bring it and bake in pieces the meat offering of them. Okay, and the priest of his sons, okay, and the priest of his sons that is anointed in his stead shall offer it in a statute forever unto the Lord. It shall be wholly burnt. For every meat food offering of the priest shall be wholly burnt. Okay, it shall not be eaten. Okay, talking about here the two manna breads. Okay, and the Lord shall speak unto Moses, saying, speak unto Aaron and to his sons, saying, this is the law of the sin offering in the place where the burnt offering is killed. Shall this sin offering be killed before the Lord? It is most holy. Okay, of course it is. The priest that offer it for a sin shall eat it. In the holy place shall it be eaten in the court of the tabernacle of the congregation. Whosoever shall touch the flesh thereof shall be holy, of course. And when there is sprinkled of blood, therefore, upon any of his garments, thou shalt wash that wherein it is sprinkled in the holy place. Okay, what are we talking about here? Again, this is Christ. Okay, the sin offering. Okay, this is talking about Jesus Christ. Okay, again, we consuming him in the holy place. Okay, him being in us and us being in him, part of his body. Okay, now, should I go on to 7? What do we got? Oh, 30 minutes. Come on, oh man. Should I talk about 7? My notes here. Maybe I'm gonna leave 7 and 8 until the next video. Just because we're gonna talk about more of deeper stuff that I don't want to lose y'all. and take my time kind of going through 7 and 8 a little bit as we get some more meat here. Yeah, I think that's what we'll do. We'll do 7 and 8 next time. And then as we continue to go through Leviticus, yeah, that's what I think I'll do. I don't want to 30 minutes, so I don't want to bore you anymore if you're bored, and even if you're listening. So I hope you got something out of it. I hope I kind of conveyed this info to you that you can understand it. If you have any questions or if there's anything that you missed or you need any more explanation on, let me know. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope everybody is taking care out there, and we'll talk soon.